Well, it's been a while since we've seen a PHOIBOS watch on the channel. This is a brand that I've always enjoyed reviewing on the channel. This is an independent brand out of Hong Kong. This is the new Leviathan. There's a lot of interesting elements to this watch, a unique design. It does have some samurai vibes to it, I would say, some Seiko samurai vibes to it. And I think this one is going to be quite a big hit for them. One of the things that I found was quite surprising was the size. So the name, the Leviathan, and then the size. So we'll be talking about that. I think you'll be impressed with the price point. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Love it if you hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up and the bell notification. I do plenty of these independent brands. But let's focus on this watch. And the most important, at the end, let me know your opinion in the comment section down below. So let's flip the camera around and dive straight into reviewing this new PHOIBOS Leviathan. So this is the new Leviathan from PHOIBOS. Let's take a look at it. So first thing you notice when you open it, that even though the watch itself is called the Leviathan, it's not massive. I thought this was going to be huge, but in fact, it's a very good size for my wrist, certainly my 7.2 inch wrist. We have only a 40mm case, even though the renders on the website make it look monstrously big. It's not at all. It's actually very wearable. 40mm case, 48mm from lug to lug, and then a thickness of 13mm. It does look a little bit thicker because of the way that the lugs slope down, but it is in fact only 13mm. So I was quite surprised when I got this out the box that in fact it is very wearable, and we'll definitely be doing some wrist shots as we go through this. It's coming in at 188 grams, so it is a little on the heavier side, although the bracelet does balance it out on the wrist. It stiffens it up on the wrist. Also, the good thing with these PHOIBOS watches is that usually the center of gravity is towards the back of the watch, so it balances on the wrist very well. This is using the NH35A. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through this. This is a movement that PHOIBOS have used for a very long time. The case is completely brushed. There's no real polished elements to it, adding to that tool watch aesthetic that PHOIBOS always have. They may take inspiration from other watches, but they don't do straight homage watches. They make these in Hong Kong, very utilitarian. We've got a screw down crown here as well, adding to that with a nice grip. There's a sandblasted ceramic bezel. This also has lume in it. Very nice, quiet but precise click to it. Again, I think over time they've definitely improved these bezels. There was a time that they were a little bit clicky, but this one certainly has a very nice action to it. And the matte finishing, the brushing on the sandblast ceramic also gives a very nice look to it. This is the red version. There's multiple other versions as well, but I opted to go with the red version. I think it contrasts very nicely between the sandblasting of the ceramic. Now, it is a dark red with a fume pattern, so it goes darker towards the edge. In some lighting conditions, and I'll show some outdoor shots, it does have sometimes a slightly pinky hue to it. I don't particularly mind it, but it has a dark red inside and then a sort of a reddy pinky hue outside. The hands have a satin look to them with a bevel down the center. The minute hand goes all the way to the minute track. Doesn't have a color-coded date window, which I think would probably be a nice improvement, but it does have a surround on the date to match the indices. Applied indices, they do have a nice 3D texture to them, so they are thick indices that have been applied, again complementing the hands. The PHOIBOS logo, the King Octopus, is printed on the dial along with the 200-meter water resistance and then automatic. PHOIBOS are very generous with their application of lume, and we have 15 layers of Super-LumiNova BGW9 on the hands and indices, and there is also lume, although I don't know how many layers have been applied to the bezel as well. As you can see here, a very cool lume shot. The bracelet is an engineer's style bracelet, a sort of an oyster style bracelet. And then they have improved this clasp. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't remember them doing an on-the-fly micro adjust before. But having said that, it has been a while since I've done a PHOIBOS watch. If I take the quick release bracelet off, you can see the button, the push button there for extending and giving that extra link on the fly adjustment clasp there. Push button, very nicely machined mechanism. Back case there has a beautiful deep engraving of their King Octopus logo. Big fan of that, and they've used some black inlay as well to highlight the text. I don't think enough watch companies do that. I think black inlaying of the text on on some of these really reminds me of Omega watches. I love it when watch companies do that. This watch just comes on the bracelet. I don't think they do any other strap options, but you could easily get it onto a rubber strap. I think this would look really good. I'm not sure how a NATO would fare, just because of the way that the lugs are sloped. The spring bar does seem to be quite close to the watch itself. Let's just put it on the wrist, push button deploying. One of the things that was a pleasure with this watch is it has screw links for the adjustment, so very easy to adjust. Here you can see it on my 7.2-inch wrist, 48mm from lug to lug, spans my wrist very nicely. And as you can see, the center of gravity is towards the back of the watch. So even though there is a little bit of give in here, it's not moving up and down my wrist as I move. I love the way that they balance very nicely on the wrist. So even though it visually looks like a slightly bigger watch, very wearable. I was surprised with a name like Leviathan. I did think it was going to be monstrously big. So now let's talk about the movement itself. Now you won't hear me complaining about the NH35A movement. It's a workhorse movement. We see it in a ton of watches, and it does allow Phoibos to keep their prices at the extremely reasonable $330. Everything is in here. Sapphire crystal, you've got the lume on there, screw down crown, 200 meters of water resistance, 3 layers of anti-reflective coating, a unique design that isn't a homage, which is a big plus in my book. And even though the NH35A is a good movement, it is a entry-level movement. I think they could really up their movement game. I would love to see them perhaps using one of the higher-end Miyota movements, like the 9051 movements, because I think the case, the dial, the hands, the overall design really is a nice vessel, if that's the right word, for a higher-end movement. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of positives there, but there is a few little things to note on this watch. A couple of QC issues that I've noticed during this. One, you might have seen from some of these close-ups on the dial, there does seem to be a hairline scratch on the dial. This watch is probably a prototype, so that might be something that's corrected in the production ones. I did get this pre-launch. The other thing as well, which I hope is corrected before the production one, is the male end link. When the watch bracelet folds back on itself, you'll see that it's scuffed a little bit on the bracelet itself. So the first link rubbing against the male end link has caused a scuff mark on this model. So just something to note. So a lot of positives, but yeah, a few little negatives just to point out. Let me know what you think of the design. Really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews. Thanks guys, bye.